What if I were to suggest that you play a key role in the awakening world? And that you are watching this because you have heard the call. We can start right now by opening our hearts and minds. Welcome to the awakening world.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Love Coach Scott Catamas, and welcome to the Awakening World, our Friday night edition. This is a wonderful weekend. All weekend long, you're going to be meeting members of the Evolutionary Leaders Network. And every single one of them is just a beautiful, heart-centered, active person making the world, well, helping us to awaken. And we're going to be concentrating on the different synergy circles. And we're going to be co-hosting with Deborah Moldow. I'm going to go ahead and pop her on quickly. There she is. She's my co-host tonight and tomorrow night. You've seen her on the show before. Reverend Deb, I'm so excited about this weekend.
Well, me too. And I really loved the invitation that you extended to me for this particular weekend. You said we've had on a lot of the members of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle in the past, and we've had many of them who are very well known, and you've read their books and you've been following them for years. What about if this weekend we bring on some people that may not be as well known, but they're out there doing the work and leading the evolution of consciousness in many different ways. So you are going to meet such special people tonight and tomorrow night. I can't wait.
Great. Well, we are going to meet them in a moment, but we're going to start off just to give people a chance to drop in. I want to welcome everybody watching on Facebook and on YouTube. And for those of us, including our presenters, I have put in the chat box here in the Zoom room the link where we are now on Facebook. So you can use that link if you want to share out to your friends. And for those of you watching on Facebook, I want to invite you to come on into our Zoom room. It's a wonderful way to connect with us. And we have really amazing presenters. We're going to have a lot of Q&A, a lot of interaction. And it's easier if you're in our Zoom room to do Q&A with us. So if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, please go to globalpeacetribe.com, globalpeacetribe.com, and register. It takes about a minute. And then you'll get the links to all of our shows for the next 3 months. We do 3 shows a week, every weekend, Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday morning. And the shows are always designed to give us information and inspiration as we all are taking hands and waking up together as we're raising our consciousness. So I really hope that you'll join us. And one of the things about Global Peace Tribe is we love to combine music and poetry and arts with wisdom. You're going to hear a lot of wisdom tonight, but let's get it started by going to our house musician, the wonderful Omashar, to get us going with some music.
What do you see when you're alone? What do you feel when you are by yourself? How could it be that you are here? Isn't it strange the way things are? Look at the river flowing by. Look at the colors of a butterfly. How do you feel about your life? Isn't it strange the way things are? Dolphin in the ocean, I can hear you calling me. Come on and you say, the water's fine, I have come to set you free. You have never been alone, my friend, I was just a thought away. There's a deeper love that's holding you and it's here to lead the Now that you see you're not alone, and there is no such thing as by yourself, there is a hand that's lifting you into the presence of yourself. Life is a tale that never ends, and there is a purpose to each heart that beats, and you are the river flowing by. You are the colors of the butterfly. Like a dolphin in the ocean, I can hear you calling me. Come on and you say, the water's fine, I have come to set you free. You have never been alone, my friend, I was just a thought away. There's a deeper love that's holding you and is here to lead the way. La da da da. Oh, oh, oh. La da da da. Oh, dolphin in the ocean, I have heard you calling me. Come on and you say, the water's fine, I have come to set you free. You have never been alone, my friend, I was just a thought away. There's a deeper love that's holding you and is here to lead the
beautiful, Omashar. Thank you so much. What a wonderful way to not just start tonight, but start our whole weekend.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we will hear from Omashar at the end of the show. And maybe throughout the show, you just never know. And I am delighted to see so many of our regulars are with us. And I know that we've got people watching from New York, Virginia, Ecuador, Switzerland, California, British Columbia. It's beautiful that we have people from all over the world. And speaking from all over the world, coming from San Miguel de Allende is Reverend Deb. I love that background. Deb, before you introduce tonight's guests, tell us a little bit about the Evolutionary Leaders Network and the Synergy Circles.
Thank you, Scott. The Evolutionary Leaders Circle is a community of visionaries. It's made up of people who are on the leading edge of the evolution of consciousness that you might call the awakening world. So many of them are authors, teachers, scientists, spiritual leaders, all different walks of life. And of course, on Sunday, we're going to have the Synergy Circle from the artists led by our beloved Kristin Hoffman. So we have a wide variety of people in this circle. But what they have in common is not only the vision to think outside the box, but they've devoted their life path to how do we get there? How do we get there as a civilization? And what can they do as individuals to make a difference? And by extension, what can all of us do by learning from them? So we've been gathering as the Evolutionary Leaders for about 15 years now. We've grown as a community. There are now about 240 of us, and they select one another from within. So that's how we grow. And a few years ago, from the very beginning, we were looking at how can we maximize our impact. And it was a very tricky question because all of these leaders have made their work following their own individual evolutionary impulse. So to have people come together and do something together, it was always a challenge. And then we realized that there were common areas of interest, and that's when the synergy circles began. I think the first thematic synergy circle that we had was the Conscious Business Circle, which we will hear from tomorrow evening. But since then, they've really blossomed, particularly under the amazing stewardship of Dr. Kurt Johnson, who's been coordinating the synergy circles. And many of you who watch this program have met Kurt here. So we now have, I think, 21 thematic synergy circles. And when Scott wanted to do this program, he chose which synergy circles he, kind of piqued his interest. And the first one he mentioned was the bridging circle. So, and by the way, if you want to see all the synergy circles, you can go to evolutionaryleaders.net and click on under activities. There's a drop down for the synergy circles. And there's our call to conscious evolution, which you're welcome to sign. Please sign the call to conscious evolution on our website because we're closing in on 50,000 signatures. So you could be the one that really puts us over the edge there. But anyway, going back to the synergy circles, Scott took a look at the list of synergy circles and he was intrigued by the bridging circle. And that's what we're going to focus on this evening. The bridging circle was formed after January 6th, 2021, when we saw the consciousness divide was so extreme in the United States and many other parts of the world. So many people were starting to think about how can we possibly bridge this divide? And we had a couple of evolutionary leaders who have been working very hard on the transpartisan movement in America. which has been an uphill climb, shall we say, because partisanship has grown only deeper and deeper over these last few years. But what we found was the people who were attracted to the bridging circle were doing bridging in all kinds of different ways. And that's what we want to talk about this evening. And that's why we have these three beautiful guests with us tonight.
Beautiful. And we're going to meet the guests now. But, I just want to say again, part of our awakening world is really coming back together and bridging, learning how to listen to each other, learning how to not go into this terrible, really civil war that has taken place. It's a social media civil war. And so it's true. I right away said, we got to do the bridging circle. So I'm really looking forward to meeting each of these beautiful evolutionary leaders and hearing their input, their ideas of how we can bridge the divide. So
and in a way, this bridging the divide is the whole work of the evolutionary leaders. Who in the global peace tribe is not yearning to see us come together in a new kind of unity that allows for differences of opinion, but respects people's points of view and finds ways to work together for the common good.
Absolutely. And we are going to want to hear from you. So please, whether you're on Unify or if you're in our Zoom room, start giving us your thoughts, your questions, your comments, and we're going to include you as best as we can. And Rev Deb, I would love for you to introduce our guests.
Okay, well, I'm going to start by giving just a very quick introduction of each of them. I love these three people. They're very different. Their work is very different, and they're all making a real difference in the world. So let us start with Sandra de Castro Buffington. She was one of the original members of the Bridging Circle, and she has the most unique path as a story whisperer in Hollywood. Can I call you that, Sandra?
Sure can.
So her mission is to get mainstream Hollywood media to tell meaningful stories and to embed these new ideas that are coming through all of us in the mainstream media so that it's not always just the love stories and the car chases, but that there is real content. So we're going to hear later from Sandra, and she's going to tell us about not only what she does in general, but also what her most recent project is, because that one is very exciting. And it turns out to be right on the cutting edge of something that everyone is talking about right now. So that's what we're going to hear from Sandra de Castro Buffington a little bit later. Thank you so much for being here, Sandra.
It's such a pleasure, Rev Deb. I love your nickname. Thank you for that, Scott.
It works, doesn't it? Doesn't she? Because she revs us all up, right? She's a reverend, but she revs up the energy and gets the evolutionary leaders going. So
thank you.
Perfect. Yeah.
So then we have two gentlemen joining us this evening. One of them is Juan Carlos Kaiten. Juan Carlos lives here in Mexico, not very far from me, and we still haven't managed to connect. We were going to see each other last weekend, and then I came down with COVID and couldn't go. But anyway, I'm fine now, thank goodness. And Juan Carlos, one of the things that intrigues me about his work, and I can't wait for him to tell us about his work because I cannot begin to describe it. But one of the things that I really admire about it is that he is continuing the work of Barbara Marx Hubbard. And for those of you who are familiar with Barbara Marx Hubbard, she was a futurist who was the first one to really coin the term conscious evolution and to tell us that we are on the cusp of moving into a whole different level from the human being that we are now to the Homo universalis that we could be in the future. And when we brought Barbara to the United Nations to speak, she says, she told us, you have to bring Juan Carlos at the same time, because he has been doing such deep research into this. And I'm really looking forward to him telling us later about the ways that he sees us moving into the future. So Juan Carlos, thank you for being with us this evening.
My pleasure. Looking forward to share about our work.
Great, great. And then our third guest from the Bridging Circle is a man named Jeff Janong. Jeff and I first met at the Parliament of the World's Religions because of the beautiful work that he has done for many years with a group called Contemplativelife. However, that's not all he does. And he's been diving deep into web development, and he is working with a very exciting initiative now called Pro-Social that is really attempting to bring people together in new ways. And I hope he's going to tell us about that this evening.
Thank
So
you.
Jeff, it's great to have you here. Welcome.
It's great to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
And I hope it's cooled off a little bit in Austin, Texas.
It's still 89, but
In the evening. That's kind of warm.
9:30.
Since we've got Jeff right here, we'll go backwards. Let's go ahead and hear from Jeff, and then Juan Carlos, and then Sandra. Just kind of balancing it a little. And Jeff, I would love to hear your answer to her question, if you're ready to kind of, let us know about that.
Sure. And the question is?
And what was that question again? No, please jump in, Jeff, because we want to hear about ways that you see bridging the consciousness divide. But you are welcome to tell us about your work with Contemplativelife, which is one way to do that through the spiritual path, something that's very close to my heart and my organization, the Garden of Light, and also to some of this newer work that you're doing with Pro-Social. So just dive in wherever you like.
Happy to. Well, first, I'd like to say a few things about the Bridging Circle, because it is a remarkable synergy circle within the evolutionary leaders. And I had the honor of being invited to it before I was invited to be an evolutionary leader, which is also an honor. And it's really important work. And it's also interesting to note, Scott, that that's like one of the first things that crossed your attention when you're looking at synergy circles. And it also dovetails with something that you referred to 2 or 3 times, Rev Deb, and that is commonality and finding common ground. That's the essence of the work, for sure. And there's a degree on which what you see is what you get. And there's so much that we have in common, so much. I mean, we are all human beings. We all live on planet Earth. And one of the things that I realized at some point in my journey is that we're all contemplative. And everyone may not realize that about themselves, but the reason I realized it by working with lots of people, lots of ages, lots of conditions, everybody has an inner life, and they meet the mystery in a very personal way. It's different for different people, thus different paths and different practices. And it's been how people meet that mystery of their own inner life that has been my particular interest, because my sense is that there's something about the contemplative dimension of human experience that is a reflection of the essence of the human experience. And so when we can begin to find what that is in our own experience, and then begin to appreciate and support how other people do it in their own experience, a whole new world comes open. And that's really been the emphasis that has drawn me into the work of Contemplativelife and Pro-Social World and the evolutionary leaders and everything else. It's a journey of the contemplative experience.
Would you be willing to share an example of a transformation, how maybe some of your work or a tool that you teach help to shift a person or a conflict?
Sure. I think one of the recent examples of it is something that we're experimenting with now in Pro-Social World. Pro-Social World is a 501c3 nonprofit. Its work is focused on the work of Elinor Ostrom, who won the Nobel Prize in Economics, first woman to ever win the Nobel Prize in Economics. And she won it for research that her and her husband did. And that field research resulted in what she called the 8 core design principles of pro-social, which are essentially the playbook for cooperation. So pro-social has been out there, lots of groups have been trained. It is having significant impact with groups and organizations and individuals. But one of the things that we're doing now is we're experimenting with integrating other methodologies and other frameworks and principles into the pro-social framework, because the pro-social framework is a framework for cooperation. So it plays well with other methodologies, other best practices, and they can be integrated into it. And the beautiful thing is that when it happens, new expressions are born out of it. So one of the things that we're doing is we're integrating the core design principles of pro-social with the 9 elements of universal spirituality, which came through Wayne Teasdale, which they're both universal frameworks. One's a universal framework for cultural evolution. The other one's a universal framework for spiritual evolution. And so there's been kind of a learning experience and a research dimension that has been put together by 2 of the wisest women I know, and they're training groups. So I have to kind of set the stage for it. So they're training groups in this experience together that essentially gives them a framework for cooperating as a group, but for integrating spiritual experiences and practices. And what we're finding, because it's also research-based, what we're finding is that when groups begin to do these contemplative practices, they have experiences. And when they have experiences, they're able to kind of come from a different place in their own self. And then they're able to share those experiences with the group when they come together. And it opens up other experiences within the group, builds trust, it builds authenticity. And one of the things that I think is the most exciting point of transformation that we're seeing is that when these groups go through this experiential learning, they yearn to keep doing it. They want to keep doing it. And that's really exciting because, one, that they want to keep doing it, but they want to keep doing it as a group. So it's building community. That's transformational. And what excites me about that is that when the transformation can begin to take place at the group level, at the community level, at the network level, now we're talking about catalysis, where this thing can really begin to move like a flywheel.
Beautiful.
Wow.
Thank you.
Jeff, can you tell us what the word pro-social means?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting too that it's kind of coming out in the wild during this time period of social distancing and people being antisocial. But pro-social really means just, exactly, how it sounds. It is, we're naturally social beings, and pro-social is the orientation toward shared common experience with other human beings. So it's based on how to cooperate. So pro-social is essentially a means by which human beings can facilitate cooperation in groups and then ultimately flourish.
And when you say in groups, are you talking about online groups primarily?
No,
or in-person groups?
the answer is yes, because it's groups, however groups form. Some of them, particularly during the pandemic, that's where so many people were gathering. And so a lot of our work, particularly in the last couple of years, has been virtual. And so it doesn't have to be physical, but what the core design principles facilitate, you can look them up, they're in the public domain and also at prosocial.world, but it quite literally is the playbook for cooperation grounded in science. And one of the things that is really cool about it to me is that nobody thought this up. Eleanor Ostrom didn't say, well, here they are. She observed them in groups and communities all over the world. And
can you give us an example of one of the design principles that you've seen in action?
Yeah, actually, the most important design principle is the first one, because all the rest hang on that. The first core design principle is shared identity and purpose. So just think about that for a second. If a group is able to distill and really, as a group, align on what that shared identity and purpose is, then that becomes kind of the North Star. And, with, divisions or tensions or anything occurs, there's always an opportunity to go back to something that everybody agreed on. And then from that, they all follow. And so, when and as humanity, with this story that's emerging, this new story of humanity, can begin to align on that as a human family, then quantum change will absolutely take place. But it has to take place at the micro before it takes place at the macro. And that's kind of where this is, in groups and communities and things like that.
Well, I really see what you're talking about with the examples of, first of all, this group, which is the Global Peace Tribe. Just to identify, self-identify as that is a very powerful basis for coming together and sharing all kinds of stories and music and conversation week after week. And then I'm thinking of the evolutionary leaders coming together around the idea of conscious evolution and that we can steer our evolution together. So I really see that. And I also can see what we've lost in the United States of America, where we don't have that anymore. We don't really have that first step of that feeling of shared identity and purpose as a nation that we had when I was growing up. And it was the space age, and we felt like heroes on the planet, and now we're so divided. And I think you're really steering us to where we can look to a more united future. So it's prosocial.world where people can find out more about that.
Yes.
Okay, well, we'll be hearing more from you later, Jeff. Thank you so much for giving us a kind of a window into that, because it's so interesting. It's you talk about it like it's research, as though it was quite academic, and yet you have this living program where you're creating models of how this can work and how it can spread. So good luck. We're with you.
Thank you.
And we'll come back to Jeff a little bit later on in the show, and we'll go to those websites. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. And speaking of somebody who's done tremendous research, Juan Carlos Kaiten has been traveling all over the world. I know you've been to pyramids in all different places. You've done studies. You've been working with indigenous people. I can't wait to hear from you tonight to get a handle on what it is that you're doing out there, Juan Carlos. So clue us in.
Yes, thank you. Well, you're right. It's been a journey, and it's been a journey of discovery. And also, I've been holding a question since I was very young in terms of what will it take for humanity to reach higher consciousness, to reach universal consciousness. I had many questions and very few answers. We didn't have internet at that time. So I started working globally. I was the president of a students organization called ISEC. I traveled the world like 25 countries since I was from 19 to 23, 24. Then I lived in India, and it was a journey. I started working in the area of collective intelligence. Collective intelligence is the science on how to stop smart people doing stupid things. So it is the more the numbers.
Can you send me the handbook for that, please?
I mean, you can have smart people in the room, but the more the numbers you have in the room, the IQ grows smaller. So we need a little bit of technique and architecture and skill to access to the collective genius of a community. And I started learning and practicing that in organizations, for instance. We were working in using consensus, and we were like, we could have the whole company saying, oh, let's go this direction, but we have a concordance methodology. And the concordance process says everybody has to agree. We need to go into deep conversations. And many times it happened that the one that was saying, no, this is wrong, let's go the other way, is the one that was the expert. So sometimes democracy needs to be revisited. We could say, oh, 99% vote this way. Hold a second, the one that say no was the expert. So we are just going in the wrong direction. So I started working in corporations. I live in New York, in Albany, working for the software factories in General Electric. And then I did a big transformation. I said, God, I want to work for the awakening of the planet. And I was not clear, and I ended up opening a coffee house in Boston. Mama Gaia's. So I was awakening the world with coffee, espressos, and mochas. But then I learned something very special there. Our coffee house, it was in Mass Avenue, Central Square, and it became the center of the community. It became a community space. Everything, it was at the time of 9/11. So all of the peace demonstrations started in our coffee house. And we had people from all grounds. People will come into the coffee house and say and ask us, how do you do that? In this table you have the Black people. In this one you have the Latinos. In this one you have environmentalists. In this one you have the guys from the corporations, from the biotech. In this table you have the geeks from MIT, and the other table you have the girls from the Harvard Divinity School writing their thesis. What is going on? I think the magic was that we put a higher purpose in the center. And I understood that bringing higher purpose to the center goes over all differences of worldview, economic status, religion. When you have a higher purpose, people comes together and unite for a higher purpose. I also saw that in ISEC. I was working with people from all 100 nations and traveling the world. And in Mexico itself, we were working with people from different universities. Sometimes people, we were in Chile and the Mexican embassy, we went to visit them, and the council was like, what is going on? You come from different universities, and these universities do not get along because they come from different economical status. And we were like, what are you talking about? We love each other. We are best friends. They couldn't believe. So it is higher purpose what is some of the most important elements. And it was at that time when I was in that coffee house when I saw the first book of Barbara, Conscious Evolution. And as I was going through the book, I told myself, Juan Carlos, these are the codes for a planetary awakening. Mm-hmm. So I started applying all of those codes in my consulting work in collective intelligence. We were doing collective intelligence for corporations, communities, and it was just amazing to see the magic of using a work cafe methodology and getting the CEO of a corporation talking to the person pretty much sweeping the place every day, and have them have a meaningful conversation in which he learned that he didn't know how to read. So he started a school helping all of his employees to develop themselves. So pretty much right now, my work, I did a master's in Sweden on sustainability and social leadership. At that time, it was 2009, I was talking to world leaders, to sustainability leaders, to spiritual leaders, And whenever we were talking about the state of the world, and they were pretty much talking about apocalypse, how the world is going to end, I will ask them a question. Is there anything we can do? And I got the same answer from all of them. Our only hope is that society unites. The change the planet needs is not going to come from any corporation, it's not going to come from any government. It will only come from an organized society. So it was at that time when I started bringing my work of my passion for spirituality. I've been studying all world religions, esoteric knowledge. I got into alchemy. So I blended that with collective intelligence. And that's how I created the School of Social Alchemy, which is a blueprint for large-scale collaboration. The question at this moment is, can we have the genius to come together, to co-create together, to reach a critical mass, sharing a deep purpose, a shared purpose, higher purpose, and having the capacity and the skill to take one step, everybody all at once, on an acupuncture point, on a social acupuncture point. The work that we are doing is, if we reach that capacity, 1% of humanity, of conscious people ready for action, having the capacity to say at the count of 3, we're going to take this action on this social acupuncture point, I believe, and what the experts from many fields have told me, whenever we reach that capacity, there's going to be a before and after. Because we can get a rhythm every week, collective, like 1% of humanity, that's like 80 million people saying, we're going to adopt this new social crypto. We're going to start using this new technology to purify and energize and bring life to the water we drink. Or there's a series of innovations worldwide. So right now, what I am doing, using the School of Social Alchemy and all of the work I did with Barbara, because we work very closely together using the wheel and how to activate the wheel. We use the wheel, we presented that at the UN with the Office for the Future, but we also work it out in Mexico with the top leaders of the Mexican society in Monterrey. We got ministers of justice, economy, the deans of universities, top level business people. And at the same time, we got NGOs, we got street people, and we started using the wheel.
Maybe you should explain what you mean by the wheel.
The wheel of co-creation is a container. It is like a kaleidoscope in which you bring people from different sectors of society to speak about how we can co-create solutions for a better community. So what we did is we got the experts of every sector of the wheel, every sector of society. And we brought a question into the center. What is your gift to your community and how we can help you to make it happen? People were not very trustful of the methodology. But at the moment we have a person stepping into the center or being the Secretary of Education or Culture saying, we have this challenge and we don't know how to do it. We don't have the capacity to do it. The creativity and all of the different sectors and leaders of the community fighting for each other to say, I have this for you. I can contribute for you. The wheel of co-creation, what it does, it is a heart-based process. When you ask a person from your mind, I have this project, could you fund me? Would you like to help me? If you speak from your mind, they will tell you, oh, send me your business plan. I will bring my financial people, I will talk about it. But when you speak from your heart and you say, this is what I want to do for the world and this is what I need, people will respond from their heart and they will say, here you have whatever you need. We are in, let's do this together. So that's what the wheel of co-creation does. And there are many codes that Barbara was using, and we are integrating all of that. And right now, just to finish, the work I'm doing right now is, I have two projects right now. One of them is called the Planetary Alignment Initiative. We are using the wheel to bring together the 1% of humanity to co-create higher consciousness solutions, an upgrade to the social operating system in communities around the world. We are starting in sacred places with elders, wisdom keepers, and community leaders to go through the wheel of co-creation process, go through a community building process, bring the best of the solutions that are available on the planet, and also bring a new way to resource, to finance all of those projects. So we are meta-weaving the process to empower communities one by one growing them into bioregions. And bioregions is the stepping stone to move into planetary consciousness. This decade, according to Barbara's wheel of co-creation and the story of the evolution, the conscious evolution process of the universe, I say that this is the decade when we need to reach planetary consciousness. Only when we become planeteers, global citizens, we can then unite into a higher purpose, stop thinking as American, Russian, or Chinese, whatever. When you work in bioregions, which is part of the work we are doing, you start thinking in a different way. We were in Hawaii with some elders in Mauna Kea, and the way they asked us to introduce each other, it was not, where are you coming from, or what do you do, what is your position? They asked us, what are the waters, what are the mountains, the rivers that you come from? Mm-hmm. So everybody forgot about the big titles or the nation, and they were talking about the mountains or the lakes where you come from. And so moving into bioregions is a very important step to get planetary consciousness. And right after we achieve that, we will reach universal consciousness, which is, it was the vision of Barbara to become Homo Amore Universalis, to reach universal consciousness, which is the destiny, our cosmic destiny. And one of the projects we are working on, that Barbara invited me to be part of that, is the Interstellar University, which is a university to awaken to our cosmic and universal nature, and move from the eagle view understanding of what is going on in the planet to the angel view understanding.
Wow.
Ways of the spirit. So, well.
Oh my God, Juan Carlos, the scope of your work and your vision. No wonder I didn't have a clue what you were up to. Thank you so much. I think we need to all just take a deep breath right now and just take in what you are talking about, reaching that level of planetary consciousness together, and the practical grounded, literally grounded steps that you're talking about us taking together. And I love the way this dovetails with what Jeff was talking about, bringing together groups around different interests, et cetera. And you're talking about bringing together bioregional groups. And what you have in common is working toward the highest possible purpose. And that's the stepping stone to the next level of consciousness. Yes?
It is higher purpose. When you bring higher purpose to the center, that's what I have seen people that do not like each other. They don't get along with one another. If there is higher purpose in the center, they will be willing to let go of their personal agendas and work together and sort out conflicts in order to work for a high purpose.
Right.
And I have seen that so many times. It's just magic.
What a vision. What a vision. And you talk about that as social acupuncture points. I mean, you've given us so much to wrap our minds around. And I want to invite the people who are watching now, especially the people in the Zoom room with us. I want to invite you to name in the chat your body of water or your mountain or anything about your bioregion where you're coming from that has your love and your connection to the planet Earth. And we've just been listening to such an incredible mind journey of what is possible for humanity. So let's ground it now in our place, our home, whatever that means to you, so that you can really feel what Juan Carlos is up to when he is trying to create such an enormous shift in consciousness, but from the very ground that we walk on. So thank you, Juan Carlos Kaiten, for walking us through that extraordinary journey that is your life and your work. Woo!
Before we bring on Sandra, I think your question was a great question. And so I want to read some of the comments that have already come in to encourage people to answer that question. Again, the question is, what are the water? What's the mountains? What's some place in your bioregion It really, when you think of it, or where you go there, brings, whether you go in your imagination or physically, helps you to really connect to the earth. And we've already got some wonderful responses. Omashar says the Rocky Mountains. Susan writes, I live next to an incredibly old lake in California. Suzanne, Mount Shasta. Oh, my friend Vishali is here. She says Sedona Red Rocks, which I've been looking at every day. Karen Eisenberg, the Blue Ridge Mountains and Marshes in North Carolina. Ayada writes, the Salish Sea, that's in British Columbia, ancient rainforests and the Little Qualcomm River. Monica Hart, Lake Tahoe, Joriaha, I hope I get that right, the Pacific Ocean. Connie Baxter, we love Connie and Andrew. And she says, my friend, the mystical mountain in Maine called Kaeton has much to contribute. Mark Denisovsky, also the Pacific Ocean. And Dorina, who's in Ecuador right now, writes rivers from the Andean Mountains in Ecuador. So great question. Please come on and continue to put those in the chat box.
And let's just feel that. Let's feel into those beautiful places, this extraordinary planet that we share. And no matter where you are, there's someplace special right near you or right under your feet. We're so fortunate to be here, aren't we?
We are blessed. We are very, very, very blessed. Juan Carlos just wrote, quote, as political borders divide us, the rivers, the mountains, the waters of the seas unite us as planeteers. Thank you, Juan Carlos. I am eager to hear from Sandra.
Well, yes, and Sandra is going to help ground us now, because her work is in an area that we all are familiar with, Hollywood, right? The makers of illusion, but also potentially the speakers of truth. And Sandra has dedicated herself over many years to bringing forth the power of Hollywood to serve the evolution of humanity into this new consciousness that we've been talking about this evening. So I really look forward to hearing from you, Sandra, about what your work has been and what your current project is too.
Thank you, Deb, Rev Deb, and Scott, and Juan Carlos, and Jeff. It's been amazing to hear everybody. And I loved hearing about Barbara Marx Hubbard. And I actually brought Barbara Marx Hubbard to speak to Hollywood at one of my events on climate change. She was so nervous. It was very cute. Anyway, just love her.
And Sandra, the last time I saw you, you
Yes.
brought me to the lake shrine. So you are near a very, very beautiful place that's imbued with the spirit of Yogananda. And you know, we can all feel that grounding in the beautiful place that you are near as well.
I live on a cliff over the Pacific Ocean, and a 5-minute walk to a sacred site. The land I live on used to be a Buddhist monastery. And this 5-minute walk takes me to a shrine, the lake shrine, which was created by Paramahansa Yogananda. And there's actually a Gandhi memorial at the lake shrine. It's the only place outside of India where some of Gandhi's ashes are interred. It's just such a beautiful place. And they say that if you walk 3 times around this little lake, anybody will have a shift in consciousness. So it's definitely my sacred home. I'm so grateful. I want to start with a little story because I'd like to talk about the power of storytelling. I grew up with, bicultural and bilingual, actually multilingual. My mother was from Brazil, my father from the US. I went back and forth between those cultures and did a lot of code switching. And I also grew up singing. My mother was a singer. She sang in 13 languages. She spoke 5. And that is where I began to learn the power of story, was through songs. And when I was a teenager, I went back to Brazil. I went to very remote places. I was on my first quest, and I had all the big questions. It's like, why am I here? What's my purpose? What's the meaning of life? And I thought maybe I would find the answers among Indigenous people who seemed to have a wisdom that modern society lacked. At least I couldn't find it there. And I ended up thinking I'd stay 2 months, and I ended up staying 5 years in remote parts of 3 different countries: Brazil, Bolivia, and southern Argentina. And I, during that time, lived with the forces of nature. And I was so blessed that these communities just brought me inside and taught me how to gather, food from the jungle and how to survive in a no money economy. And at night, the children would come to my little hut and teach me their songs. And this is what really helped me take a deep dive into cultures that were new to me. So, and I played guitar, so I started learning. I'd sing those songs, and I began to really kind of come to what they held as sacred and where they were headed. Their songs spoke to their desired future. So I work with the power of storytelling, and my whole journey, it brought me in a very odd way to Hollywood. I knew absolutely nothing about Hollywood. I was utterly unqualified to do my work. But I had been working in about 50 countries around the world on programs of social good, mostly women's rights and health and well-being, also girls. And I had been able to use or partner with storytellers in other countries, mostly in South America. And because I was university-based, I could measure the impact of stories on television on viewers. And it was amazing to me that all of these efforts at change, which required money and policy change and uniting communities and all that, were superseded by one story arc on a soap opera. That we got more measurable change, shifts in attitude, changes in consciousness, and actual changes in behavior. And so I was invited to work with Hollywood, to basically as a provocateur of the industry with no finger wagging, but to inspire storytelling around social good. So, I've worked on everything from, I started a big climate change initiative to every aspect of health and well-being, a lot of global stories. And I realized that, a lot of people were very critical of the industry, and I can absolutely understand why. But I thought, I'm inviting them, trying to inspire them to tell stories about things they've never experienced. And I know from my own upbringing that it was total immersion in cultures that I wasn't familiar with that began to wake me up. I needed direct experience, and I figured they did too. So I started a story tour series, and I started taking writers and producers out of their comfort zones. And by the way, curate the story tours around different themes of higher good. And I would take, my first story tour was to South Africa, from LA to Johannesburg, South Africa, where we spent a week in remote areas, in urban environments all over the place. And from there, we flew to Mumbai, India. And we went into the city dump, into the second largest slum in the world. And we met children rescued from sex slavery. And we met kids who had grown up on the city dump and had gone to college and came back to be community organizers. These kinds of experiences that these folks would never have experienced otherwise. And during that time, by the way, it absolutely transformed their storytelling. And because I map and track what's on television and in movies, we started to see a huge increase in the number of stories that showed the interconnectedness of the world. Where at the beginning, there were practically none. I thought, okay, if this can work taking people overseas, why can't we go 15 minutes away into, say, East and South Los Angeles, 15 minutes away from where writers and producers do their work all day, to places they'd never visit on their own, and help them meet real people on the ground in their communities and hear real stories. So basically, my job as a provocateur is to connect writers and producers to the edgiest, most out-of-the-box topics and real people with real stories and leading experts around the world to inspire their storytelling, with the goal being stories that are more authentic, accurate, and realistic, and have measurable impact on audiences. So imagine an increase. Let's say we could get every TV show coming out of Hollywood. I work with Bollywood, so out of India as well, and Sollywood, South Africa, and Nollywood, Nigeria. I work with all these creative capitals. And imagine if we were able to inspire stories that showed empathy, the ability to reach across divides and tribes in an authentic way without stereotyping, the ability to have conflict in a healthy way, the ability to meet the other with openness, curiosity, empathy, and respect. Imagine if every single episode of every show began to depict those qualities and behaviors. What would happen? It would become our new normal, because that's what happens. I've tracked this over many years. We create a new normal through our stories. And it's often the small moments, like people think, oh, we have to create a series that's about bridging political divides and every episode has to hit it on the head. Actually, not so much. It can be the sci-fi show, the medical show, the police, procedural, the, drama. And it can be those small moments of interaction between characters that show us a different way to be. So right now, I have a company, which is Story Action. And I am also executive director of Bridge Entertainment Labs, which is a nonprofit company aimed at bridging political and social divides. And so I've been taking writers and producers on a deep dive into the bridging world. So we just finished a 2-part workshop led by a bridging expert, a whole team, they were amazing, that put the writers and producers through these experiences of learning how to listen and then learning how to get to bullseye, is what they call it, which is to be fully present and witness and then convey back to the speaker the essence of what they said, to the point that the speaker feels heard and seen in an accurate way. Isn't that what we all want? So it's not about convincing others to see the world the way we do. It's really this is really what I'm talking about, is a form of love. Mm-hmm. It's one of the highest forms of love, to see the wholeness in someone else and to convey value and respect, to treasure them. Mm. So that's the work I'm doing. And I also have a film. I can tell you about that later, but that's a bit of this current piece of work.
That's
Sandra, it's beautiful what you do. It's so beautiful and it's so important. Can you give us an example of some storyline that's made a difference in a television show or in a film? And maybe also some of you who are listening might want to put in the chat something that opened your heart that you saw on the screen.
Oh, thank you for that question, Deborah. I also measure impact on things. So what I'm called to share with you now is I mean, just to give you a sense of scale, in a 3-year period, I had 565 storylines on 91 TV shows across 35 networks. So it's not like once a year, it's just, there's just a lot to it. In around 2016, because I meditate, that's how I get guided as to what to focus the industry on. And I got this download: focus the industry on rape culture and sexual consent and sex trafficking. And my rational side said, no, that's really edgy stuff. You don't want to go there. It was the most insistent impulse. I had to do it. So I had some panel discussions at the Writers Guild of America West. And then I started story tours on rape culture and took 20 writers and producers of major shows and of some movies on a story tour to rape treatment centers for adults, rape treatment center for children, rape sex trafficking rescue home that's just in a neighborhood you'd never know that's what it was, for young people. And a bunch of other, we went to the Los Angeles Police Department's Human Trafficking Task Force and met with the whole team. These are the kinds of trips we make into communities. And one of the writers was from Grey's Anatomy, and she created an episode on sexual assault. And what was special about it were a couple of things. One is the depiction of the rape kit collection process that showed that every step of the way, the survivor is given agency. She is given the power to say, she has to be asked, do I have your permission to take a sample of your hair? Do I have permission to take a swab of your saliva? And this woman, whose agency was completely taken away, is now in a setting where she's given it back every step. That's something we don't normally see. I didn't know any of that. I learned right along with the writers and producers because, there's so many topics. So the other thing the show did so beautifully is when the survivor is now through the rape kit collection process, and she's going to be wheeled down this long hallway, which is actually the hallway I took them to in the building. It's this long hallway, and she's in a gurney and she's terrified and she's going for surgery. And what the doctors and staff had done is they called all of the women in the hospital, the sweepers, the receptionists, the secretaries, the surgeons, the techs, the nurses at every level, to line the long hallway to silently witness and support this woman. And as she comes out, you see her look up and hear all these women of every shape, size, race, ethnicity, and age, all there in silent support and witness to this woman. It makes me cry to tell you this story because it so moved me. And it said, you are not alone. And we are here with you and for you. And what happened is there was a 43% increase in calls to the national rape hotline number across the country immediately after the episode aired. 43%. We usually get a 10% of this, 11% of that, 9.8%, 43%. And for me, it was this incredible unity and witnessing and coming together of women who say, it is safe to be here. We are here with you, and you have your agency back, and we're going to ensure that you have it every step of this process.
So this 43% increase represented women who normally would not have reported the rape.
That's right.
And they had the courage to do it because they saw this.
That's it.
How powerful, Sandra.
Well, this might be a good time for us to learn a little bit more then about the movie that Sandra's made. Tell us about Brainwashed.
Okay, so I had the privilege of serving as co-producer on this film. It's called Brainwashed, Sex, Camera, Power. And we started making it right before the pandemic started. And then it took us 3 years through the pandemic. And then it premiered at Sundance in January. And the film, what I feel is relevant to this conversation is we're in this transformational time of elevating consciousness and bringing what has been hidden into the light. And this film shows what's been hidden in plain sight. We've all been looking at it and seeing it our whole lives. And for the last 100 years in movies and TV shows on the screen, but we didn't really notice what we were seeing. And so this film is about shot design, or the way the camera shoots women and men differently. It has been done in world cinema, in the top films of all time, every famous film you can think of. We have over 175 clips from these top movies in our film. It's a feature documentary film. And it shows how men are shot, for example, in 3D lighting. And they are very human. They have shadows and expression in their faces. And women have been, for the last 100 years and today, shot in 2D lighting. So they're very fantasy lighting. They're faded out. They're floating in space. They're not exactly real. And it's lighting. It's the way women's bodies are fragmented. The body pan. We know we're going to shoot on the rear end. We're going to look at the cleavage, and we're going to look at the legs. The body pan. That doesn't happen with men. That is only with women. So there are kind of 5 different elements that we show in this. And, it isn't to tell anyone how to shoot a film or how to tell a story, but it's just to elevate consciousness that these 5 methodologies objectify women and perpetuate rape culture and employment discrimination against women. And that, by raising consciousness, we hope to give both filmmakers and viewers a way to know what they're seeing and know what they're creating if they're filmmakers, and to choose whether they really want to do it that way or to do it differently. And so the film has been premiered all over the world now. It's still premiering different parts of the country, of the world. And we'll be having a theatrical release in 25 cities across the United States, starting in the fall, starting in New York in October, and then also Los Angeles. So we see that there's quite an appetite for the consciousness raising of the film. I hope you'll be able to see it.
Wow. Just looking at these reviews, some amazing reviews that you've already gotten from, really major film makers or film journals, I should say. Please, as your list of locations becomes clear, let us know. And on our Global Peace Tribe announcements, I'd love to promote, where it's going to be in which cities, so that we can all go out and watch it. And I only made one movie in my life, and it was so much work to make that I decided never again. So I really respect how much, because it's years and years, and then years to get it distributed. And so God bless you for the amazing work that you're doing in the world, and for the stick-to-itiveness. And I envy that you live that close to Lake Shrine. When I lived in Topanga and worked in West LA, I stopped at Lake Shrine 2 or 3 times a week. It's one of my favorite places on the planet.
Oh, Scott, I hope you will come back, and I will take you as my guest. It would be such an honor. And if anybody here comes to Los Angeles, please don't hesitate. You can go to lakeshrine.org. It is one of the most beautiful places on the planet.
It is. I'll have to tell you, I've got some sweet stories about Lake Shrine. I'll tell you privately. Okay. There's so much to integrate. So tonight's show is going to go a little bit longer than usual, because I want to come back to each of our guests one more time. Just to kind of integrate what we've learned, I'm going to turn it over to our house musician, Omashar, just to give us a little bit of music to drop in and integrate all the wonderful information that we've already received tonight. Brother Omashar, can you lead us on a little musical moment, please?
What more can I be than what I am? Though it's taken some time to clear these clouds from my eyes. So open your heart and dance along. I'm thinking it's time to stop that same old song. I've come alive, so hear me now. I am in love with the world around me, and I will hold her in my arms and lift her with my dreaming. And lift her with my dreaming. Lift her with my dreaming. So don't try to hold me to what I was. I've traveled through time to see this day arise. The love that I am is here for you. So open the door and let the sun shine in. So hear me now. I am in love with the world around me, and I will hold her in my arms and lift her with my dreams. And lift her with my dreams. Lift her with my dreams. What can I be than what I am? It's you, Scott.
Thank you so much, Brother Omashar. Thank you.
I was being quite ambidextrous. There's some distortion coming out of your thingamajig. I was muting people as I was singing. That was pretty good.
That is impressive. Is there distortion now?
No, it's gone. It was just like this sound. It's all gone. It's good now.
Okay. Omashar, thank you so much for giving us a chance to drop in.
To breathe, I'm just exactly integrating to what has been shared so far is phenomenal. I'm just so privileged to be here, listening to this information.
Well, I'm going to bring all of our guests on, and what we're going to do is ask kind of a final question, and then take a look at some of the websites so that everybody can do a little bit more. These are always like a homeopathic dose of Sandra, of Jeff, of Juan Carlos, and so I want people to know how they can continue and get more. Jeff, I'm going to go to you first, if that's all right. I'd like to find out a little bit more about how people can learn more from Contemplative Life, learn more about what you're doing. So I'm going to go to both of your websites and really just kind of ask you to talk us through a little bit. So let's start with Pro-Social World. How do people get involved, and what might they get out of interacting with it? And everybody, as we're kind of going along, the website is simple. It's prosocial.world. Prosocial.world. So everybody go to your computers and right away, always register. You know, that's a great way so you can find out what's going on. And I just registered. All right, Jeff, tell us more.
So pro-social is actually an evolutionary framework. So I mentioned Eleanor Ostrom and the core design principles. And what happened a few years before she won the Nobel Prize in economics is an evolutionary scientist named David Sloan Wilson began coming across her work, and he realized this is evolutionary. So they began collaborating. And so what happened is that Eleanor was a political scientist and a social scientist. Then David is an evolutionary scientist, particularly focused on the new dimension of evolution, which is cultural evolution, not just biological. And so he began collaborating with her in bringing evolutionary science to her work. And so, like, you can think about it as like the corpus, the nucleus of it changed with evolutionary science. And then another scientist that is famous for a branch of psychology called contextual behavioral science began recognizing this work is very consistent with their own methodology, which is using the ACT matrix, using methods and practices of mindfulness, things that facilitate psychological flexibility. And the reason that that's important is because in order to change within a group, we have to be psychologically flexible, and tools and practices and methods can help with that. So pro-social is actually continuing to evolve and change. And one of the things that I'm hoping to bring to it is contemplative science and evolutionary spirituality. So you can go to the site, find out about the science. There's trainings and practices. So there's various things that we do, some that are free and informational, and some that are actually training. We train facilitators. There's been about 500 facilitators that have been trained in now, I think, around 35 countries around the world. So it's growing very, very rapidly. And it's a really good thing because it's growing because there's a book called Pro-Social, because it's a means by which groups and organizations and networks can cooperate together. And if you go to the blog, you don't have to click on it now, but if you go to the site and go to the blog section of it, there are case studies and different stories on how people have utilized the method. And there's one in there that I'm particularly partial to, and it's in East Africa. It was something that happened during the apex of the Ebola crisis. There was a village that had one of the highest concentrations of Ebola. And through that process of crisis that they were facing, somehow they got introduced to pro-social. And as a community, what they began to do is began to kind of explore and embody these core design principles to face this crisis that of all their loved ones dying. And again, shared identity and purpose, the kind of the first thing. They began to do this as a community, and they discovered that one of the reasons why there was such spread and transmission is because of the touching of the bodies, and it was part of their funeral rites, is they touched the bodies of their loved ones. And so what they did is they decided that they could create an effigy from a banana tree. And they took the effigy and made it in the likeness of their loved one, and they were able to touch this this icon representing their loved one. And as a result of that, they went from one of the highest levels of transmission to one of the lowest levels by embodying these principles. So talk about transformational change, amazing. And the way that groups do this is unique, every group. And the reason is that the group themselves have to kind of put on these principles in their own unique way. And so there's not two groups that would embody these principles in the same way. And one of the things that we're exploring right now is how these different groups that are embodying these principles, what's the kind of collective wisdom that's coming from how do they do that, and how that wisdom can be shared with other groups to facilitate kind of a, you might think of it as a cultural or a group form of vicarious learning, where the process of cooperation and change can happen really rapidly. So that's one example. There's lots of other examples on there as well.
I'm going to briefly just go back to your website. So this is the blog he was talking about. Again, go to prosocial.world, click blog. Here's the story he was just talking about. But if you take a look, there are so many, as I was scrolling down, almost every one of these blogs is something that I'd like to open up and read. There's so much fascinating information about what you're doing, and it's all over the world. So I'm noticing that as I look at these different aspects, it's very cross-cultural and very across many different places. I also want to encourage people that, I just kind of discovered as I was, going through here, that there is a wonderful book. And so I want to encourage people to go to Amazon and get the book, Pro-Social. I'll just read what it's about: using evolutionary science to build productive, equitable, and collaborative groups. So that's available on at Amazon, and you can get it on Kindle, paperback. So beautiful work that you're doing. But wait, there's more. There's also Contemplative Life. So just briefly, if you can tell us a little bit about this. This is, you had mentioned it in your earlier speaking, but this is the website, contemplativelife.org. And what would you like for us when we go there to look at or to notice?
Well, the heart of it is practices. So if you go up to, the practices section, the idea here is a digital hub of practices, transformative practices, and communities of practice. And the idea is to create a central place that serves as kind of an umbrella for all these myriads of transformative experiences that people can share together. So if you go in there and click on any of this will actually take you to a different one, which are traditions, not just practices. And inside, the traditions are practices as well. So you can click into any of those hyperlinks right there, and that'll take you into a practice or a community of practice. This is a good one, United Religions Initiative. Talk about, communities of practice. They've got communities of practice all over the world. And so the idea here, the mission of Contemplative Life, another nonprofit, is that it connects people and communities with transformative practices. So it's just a place where individuals can go and kind of on their own term, just kind of navigate through and find what draws you in. And then, find some information about it. And then from there, you can go off to the practice community, or maybe practice the practice, that sort of thing.
Jeff, thank you so much. I'm going to bring Rev Deb on to thank you also, and then we're going to have our kind of closing with Sandra and Juan Carlos. But this is my first time meeting you, and I'm very impressed with the wonderful work you're doing. And I hope maybe you'll come back on to one of our shows again.
Happy to.
You can see that none of our evolutionary leaders have been sitting on their hands.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So we just really appreciate all of this work that's going on behind the scenes to try to bring humanity together to a higher place.
All right, we go to Juan Carlos. And Juan Carlos, kind of a similar question. What would you like for our audience to know? How can they support the wonderful work that you're doing with Social Alchemy? And again, his website, everybody, is socialalchemy.life. Socialalchemy.life. Tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, well, this is a snapshot of all of the work I've been doing. Social alchemy is a framework of conscious evolution. Here you can see the wheel as a framework for conscious evolution. And if you go a little bit on there, you can see part of my work on my thesis in Sweden in terms of large scale collaboration. This is the magic canoe, what you can see there. This is, I will call it as a modern Noah's Ark into higher consciousness. Is to help humanity. This is what the School of Social Alchemy is about, what you can see now. This is a framework of the skills we need to develop in order to move from the era of the charismatic leader to the collective leader. These are the skills we need to develop, 7 levels of complexity on how humanity interacts. And that's what the School of Social Alchemy is offering. We are about to launch, we're prototyping right now some of all of these trainings. We are starting right now in 4 communities, in 4 continents. We are starting in Hawaii, in Mexico, in Tepoztlan, in Cairo, Egypt, and in Azores, Portugal. This is, I mean, you can get in touch with me. There's going to be a series of workshops, and pretty much this is a framework for a conscious evolution in terms of what will it take for humanity to develop the skills to get to that everybody all at once moment, which is, I think we're close when people, I think that we are living a crisis of hope at the moment in the planet. And many people is losing faith, believing that it's not possible. But we are closer than what we think about it. I've been with scientists like city planners, urbanists, architects, engineers. And when I ask them about the state of the world, and I tell them, can we build the cities of the future? And I show them a picture of a happy family, a community, and they say, no, we will get into destruction sooner than that. But when I ask them, well, what if I pay you to build this city? And they will say, oh, if that's the case, I can, in 5 years, and I can do it better than what you're showing to me. So I believe right now and I love also, like, I mean, the work that Jeff and what we're presenting here in terms of building a new vision. I think that what Sandra can do, and what Sandra is doing in terms of working with Hollywood, if we can bring the stories, the great story of how the planet got into higher consciousness, I think there's a matter of belief. If we can bring this higher vision and learn and believe that we have all of the resources, we have all of the knowledge and the skills to transform the world in a very rapid way, if there is a way, people will jump into that. So I think there is a call to co-create the great story of the planet. And that goes along into showing that never underestimate a small act of kindness, because those are the ones that make the ripple effect and transform the planet. So nobody should feel insignificant or little, because those small acts of kindness are the difference. And well, that's pretty much the work that what we're planning to do through the Planetary Alignment Initiative. We are starting in October in Hawaii, starting with the Kahuna community, with the elders there, this prototyping of community building. We want to take this prototype to every community in the world, and bring in innovations, bring in spiritual philanthropists to fund those innovations, and empowering community leaders and pioneers and everybody in the community to join what we call the Planetary Party. And that's what I used to share a lot with Barbara. If we invite people to join and do community work, nobody's gonna come. It's gonna be the same faces all the time. But we organize a party, you will have the whole town in there, even the ones you didn't invite. So this is the School of Social Alchemy, and what we're doing with the Planetary Alignment Initiative and Interstellar University is a pathway to a planetary party. Everybody has a gift to humanity. And the process that we're building with the Wheel of Co-Creation and the School of Social Alchemy is to empower each person to bring their greatest gift to humanity. And using the wheel It's a multi-centric process. We bring every person to the center, every organization to the center, and we ask them, what is your gift to humanity? What do you need? Once we bring each person and speak from their heart, this is my gift to humanity, and this is what I offer and what I need to make it happen, the community will pour in supporting that person. We're building the financial mechanisms to support all of those people, and many of the dreams that we had with Barbara as the synergy engine and the vital signs monitor that Don Beck also wanted to build. So,
and Juan Carlos, you know, I love what you said before about we only need 1%. What if we're already there? What if already 1% of humanity is at this next level of consciousness, but we just don't know how to show it, how to manifest it, how to show up at the party. So exactly. I love the work that you're doing.
That's precisely the work. We're working on cracking the code for global social synergy. The moment we find, and I believe my self-fulfilling prophecy is that everything started in 2020, the decade of change, the decade in which humanity's fate was decided. I'm speaking as a self-fulfilling prophecy from 2020 to 2030. 2020 was the awakening year, and we won't speak about that. 2022 and 2023, what I see emerging is the year where a new series of social synergy tools will emerge. Prosocial is one of them, and there are many other social synergy tools emerging. 2023, where they will be out. I mean, they're out now. We will start mastering from 2023 to 2024. The moment we master the new generation of social synergy tools, we will get very close to the everybody all at once moment. That's when we reach coherence of that 1%. I believe that we are at least at 10% of people ready to get into action, conscious people. And let's start with the 1%. So in my self-fulfilling prophecy is that by 2024, 2025, we will reach that capacity. That's gonna be game over. That's gonna be a new story overnight. There is a book, it's been my guide, which is a book from Marilyn Ferguson, The Aquarian Conspiracy, that was written in the 1980s. That's one of my Bibles. She did a self-fulfilling prophecy, speaking as a sociologist and a neuroscientist, describing how humanity is going to unite. And she describes, there's a chapter of the network of networks. That's what we're building. When we awaken and integrate the network of networks, that's Gaia's immunity system activated, Gaia's neuronal brain. That's what Barbara used to speak a lot. So I believe all of that will happen by 2025, 2026. There are some prophecies talking about that, but I just see what is emerging in the ground. So let's be in touch, and we're working on that, and we need a lot of help in many fronts. So it's going to be a pleasure to be co-creating this new world with all of you.
Beautiful. I knew Marilyn. I actually spent a lot of time with her before she passed away. And because I was living in LA at the time and used to go, she had these amazing networking parties. So anyway, thank you for bringing in Marilyn, and thank you for that beautiful vision. And again, everybody, you can learn more about his wonderful work by going to socialalchemy.life. And a couple comments that are pertinent. Karen just wrote, I'm so in tune with you, Juan, loving everything that you are saying. So, and I think she speaks for many of us. And as I bring on Sandra, I want to read a comment that came in about Sandra, which was, where is it? This is from Dia. Dia writes, Sandra, I was so moved by your captivating, glued to your articulate sharings. You are so beautiful. I excitedly look forward to your film, Brainwashed. Namaste and appreciation. That's from Dia, one of our regulars. So that's a good segue for us to learn a little bit more about what you're doing. And again, her website is her name, Sandra de Castro Buffington.com. And I'll put that in the chat box as well. But
may I correct you? It's Sandra just so that people know, it's Sandra. It's a soft A. In Portuguese, it's actually Sandra. And I don't expect anybody to say that. So Sandra, soft A is just great. That's what Americans usually say. So
Thank you very much. I stand corrected. Absolutely. Sandra, tell us a little bit about what we're seeing on your website. And obviously, always people go to, like right off the bat where it says get in touch, put in your name, put in your information so that she knows how to reach you. But besides that, oh, I do want to consent. There we go. Thank you for asking for consent. What do we do? Oh, you can help me with, I want to know about your live events. Yeah. Okay, there we go. Sandra, where else would you like for us to go on your website? Tell us about what you're doing and how we can support you.
you can, I mean, there's some tabs there. I don't think you need to go through it, but anybody can visit the website. And if something, you can click on the various tabs, conscious media and social impact, entertainment, inspiration is another category of offerings. That picture there is, I was invited to create a new award for the Cairo International Film Festival in Egypt, the longest running festival in the Middle East, the Arab world, and Africa. And it was just, I created the Conscious Media Award, and they have been awarding that. I got to go to Cairo 2 years in a row right before the pandemic, and to really introduce this new value of consciousness. And it was a new thing. I did it in partnership with United Nations. So, these are the kinds of things that happen. It's just fascinating. There's some photos too from Illuminate Film Festival. Some of you may know Illuminate. I've been part of that every year up until the pandemic, doing whatever they needed. So giving talks, I do some keynotes, or I serve as the head juror. I present awards at the end, whatever they need. I'm here to support them and invite all of you, if you're interested in conscious storytelling, to explore both of those film festivals, among others. And these are images of different events I've been involved in around the world. With the film, I hope you'll go to the box office, and eventually it will stream, but you'll be seeing some promo for it coming out. What I wanted to share is there is a saying from the great jazz musician Charlie Mingus. He said, "Anyone can make the simple complicated. Creativity is making the complicated simple." So when we get too complicated in, conveying what we're doing, we lose people. And the idea of jazz and this way of being more kind of minimalist, and really, I think, just sharing the heart in a way that really grabs and holds attention and witnesses others' hearts. I think there's so much power in that. And, the other thing I've learned and from the social science research is that it's really entertainment first, that when we transport people into a story, they land in suspension of disbelief. And the research shows that when we're in that state, we have the highest knowledge gains, the biggest shifts in attitude, and the biggest changes in behavioral intention from suspension of disbelief. So it isn't pouring more information into people, it's engaging their imaginations and taking them into new worlds. And so I invite us to do that with each other, just to inspire each other and to love each other, and to be kind and to connect. That's part of the magic of storytelling.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. What a joy to have you on the show. Of course, I had the pleasure of doing the award ceremony with you for Illuminate online sometime last year. Rev Deb, you've done an amazing job. I'm going to read just a few of the comments coming in from Unify. Dolores writes, "It is with so much gratitude that I've been able to listen to each of these wonderful speakers, each of these evolutionary leaders, What a wonderful evening. Thank you, Dolores. Mary Beth just wrote about how beautiful this has been and talking about two wonderful films that I'm sure you're familiar with, Sandra, My Octopus Teacher and Fantastic Fungi.
Yes.
Louis, who made Fantastic Fungi, is going to be on our show next month. Suzanne writes, amazing guests tonight. Thank you, Scott and Dr. Deb. Oh, you're now a doctor.
I'm a doctor now.
You're revving us up and you are a doctor. And much gratitude, of course, to Jeff, Juan, Carlos. Let me bring them all on, all of our friends here. Wow, a lot of comments coming in. Oh, and I have somebody very special to introduce. So I'm going to, for a moment, introduce our wonderful audience. I have an assistant. I have a wonderful new support person. As most of you know, Debbie Johnson had to go take care of her mom. And so meet Priscilla, also known as Prissy, who is giving me wonderful support, putting together the bios and doing wonderful things. So welcome to the Awakening World and the Global Peace Tribe, Prissy.
Hello, everybody. Yes, as Scott said, my name is Priscilla. I'm from Peru, from Lima. And I'm very happy to be working with Scott and to meet all of you and to learn a little bit more of everybody's experiences and knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to have you with us. I'm going to put the spotlight back on Rev Deb for a moment because I want to remind people of two things. I want to remind them you can learn all about these wonderful synergy circles by going to the evolutionaryleaders.net and open up, see what the activities of evolutionary leaders, learn about the different synergy circles, and of course, join us tomorrow night.
And please sign the Call to Conscious Evolution. We're inching up toward 50,000 signatures, and we would love to include you, and we'll ask you to give us a little note saying what you'd like to contribute to our conscious evolution or what you're doing in that regard. And we've gotten some very inspiring messages from people. So please sign the Call to Conscious Evolution. Take a look at our moment of choice. If you haven't, I know all of the people who are listening to this show have probably heard about this beautiful book, co-written by 43 of our evolutionary leaders. And you can see why I love my evolutionary leaders, including you, Scott. Everyone is so special. And I also love this global peace tribe and the people who show up week to week on the Zoom with their beautiful comments and their wonderful open hearts and minds. I know that everyone is part of leading this evolution to something really new, really different, what Juan Carlos was pointing toward in everything that he said. Yeah. We are on the verge of becoming truly new humans. And it takes every single one of us to get to that tipping point. So blessings to you, Scott, and to Juan Carlos and Sandra and Jeff and all of our beautiful evolutionary leaders. And we'll meet more of them tomorrow evening on the Saturday night show, where we'll be focusing on the Conscious Business Synergy Circle.
That's right. And just a reminder, of course, many of you are regulars, but for those of you that are new, we have a show on Saturday nights. And tomorrow night's show is going to be great. Again, I get to have Deb as Rev Deb, now Doctor of Evolutionary Leaders, as my co-host. And we've got some beautiful people joining us, all evolutionary leaders that are involved in conscious business. And on Saturday nights, we really open up and have lots of entertainment. Tatiana Speed is going to come back and play more music. Omushar is going to bless us with more music. And Swami Beyondananda, our dear friend Steve Bierman, is going to be with us. So it's going to be a wonderful show. That's at
another evolutionary leader.
Another evolutionary leader. We also are going to hear from Irvin Laszlo. I did a wonderful pre-record with him in Tuscany. He's 90 years old. And wait till you hear what he has to say about conscious business. Very inspiring and a beautiful man. So that's tomorrow night at 6 o'clock.
Oh, I want to thank Suzanne in the chat because she has just awarded me a Doctor of Evolutionary Leadership.
I agree with that. Let's all twinkle. All hail the Doctor of Evolutionary Leadership, our wonderful Reverend Deborah Moldow. There she is. Oh, and you know what, Deb? I also want to mention briefly our final show that we're going to do this weekend, Artists Catalyzing Evolution. And it's going to be co-hosted by Kristin Hoffman and Kaeshi. And we have a beautiful couple of guests. Reverend Retta Morgan is going to lead us on a practice. And Cara Stonehouse is coming to us from Europe. And all these, and these are younger people, next generation that are leading the way through artistry. So that's also very, very exciting. So we have a wonderful weekend still ahead of us. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to go to gallery view because we always like to see everybody twinkling. So turn on your cameras and we'll close out. Look at all those beautiful souls. Karen and Susan and Anna and so many of our friends. So beautiful to see all of you. Hope to see you tomorrow night. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a wonderful evening and good night.